Welcome to Post Fight with Ray Thompson. This show is powered by MMA Crypt and MMA Mental. For more interviews and podcasts, please subscribe to our YouTube channels, MMA Crypt and MMA Mental. You can also follow MMA Crypt on Facebook and Twitter. It's at MMA Crypt on Twitter and MMA Crypt on Facebook. To follow me, it's at MMA Mental on Twitter and Ray Thompson on Facebook. I'm now joined by Dan Hooker. Dan is coming off a successful UFC debut with a first round TKO over the UK's Ian Entwistle. Dan, thank you very much for joining me.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me.
Congratulations on not only making it to the UFC but winning your first UFC fight.
Yeah, well, that was the whole thing about it, like getting signed to the UFC. I didn't really feel like I'd achieved something. Now that I've won, it's kind of set in and I can enjoy it a bit more.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit. I mean, obviously, you know, anyone that gets into MMA, you know, the goal is to be at the highest you can get. And, of course, UFC is the number one promotion. So what was it like for you making your UFC debut? And what was it like making it in your home country?
It was just a bit more a bit of a shock. Like, you say that the UFC is the pinnacle. Well, in New Zealand, no one had really done it. No one had come up training in New Zealand and made it to the UFC. Like, we've got a few other guys trained out of Aussie. Mark Hunt, but he's been a superstar for the last decade. So for a guy to come up in New Zealand and train here, fight here, and then make the UFC was kind of unheard of. So when I first heard it was coming, it was a bit of a shock, but I knew I had to get on it, and it all worked out. So I'm just thanking my lucky stars still.
I mean, I've been around quite a lot of UFC events. I'm based in Europe, so I've been around quite a lot of UFC events in Europe. What was the media week like? Because obviously that would have been the first time you experienced anything like that, I imagine.
Yeah, it was pretty cool being at home. Kept me pretty down to earth, having my friends and family still around me. Yeah, getting all the photos taken and all the interviews, it was a bit different, but I was just taking it as it came and didn't let it distract me. Well, it kind of was a good distraction while you're cutting weight, not just sitting at home driving yourself crazy.
Now, going into the fight, of course, like I said, you were fighting a UK guy, Ian Entwistle. What did you know about him going into the fight?
Oh, I knew he was a submission guy. I knew he liked to jump for the leg locks. He liked the legs. So I just spent my time drilling defense, researching defense, and just got as fit as I could, and it all worked out. Like, I was prepared for that position, so I wasn't. It's a dangerous position, so, but I never really felt that threatened while he was there.
That was going to be my next question, actually, because he was constantly working, especially for the heel hook. And how close were they?
Yeah. When he first locked it on, as soon as I started defending it, he kept switching, but I knew, because my training partners have been doing the same thing. I knew if I just kept patient, he'd kind of run himself into a brick wall. Like, you run out of options if a guy's just sitting there turning his heel in, defending, controlling hands, and then I knew he'd just get frustrated, and that set up the strikes. So it's pretty much the same series of events that I've been going through and training the last month and a half. So it really wasn't a surprise to me. So it was good.
Now, you started throwing elbows. You mentioned the elbows there. You threw quite a lot, and he still held onto the leg even though you were throwing those elbows. Were you surprised that he held onto the leg for as long as he did under that type of pressure?
Yeah, I thought he'd switch for something else, or I was waiting for him to try to come on top or try to control my hands or something, but he was so adamant that he could finish me with a heel hook that it was like he couldn't believe that what was going on. He's so stubborn about it that he was getting caught with those elbows, and he just could not change his game plan. It's the only thing I can think of.
Okay, let's talk us through the moment that the ref stopped the fight and how you felt getting that first UFC win.
Yeah, well, I just started to land once he covered up. Ref jumped in. I just stood up, and that's kind of when everything hit me. I kind of fight week. I keep the blinders on, walking out. I'm concentrated on the fight. As soon as I stood up, I looked around at the top tier, and just the crowd, the noise. Oh man, it was overwhelming and really humbling as well, just to have that much support.
Yeah, it must have been absolutely amazing. So you're now 1-0 in the UFC. I know you're very early on in your UFC career, but any idea on who you'd like to fight next? Who do you think you match up well against?
There's a bunch of guys. I would like a striker. I want to get on the Japan card for the next UFC. I already hit Sean up, so I'm just waiting to hear back about something for there. I asked that night. I was like, I want another fight, man.
Yeah, because the fight was quite a quick fight. I take it there's no injuries. You're feeling quite good and ready to go.
Yeah, well, it's easy to stay fit. It's how hard to get fit. So I'd like to just stay fit, keep fighting, stay weight nice and low, and keep on grinding.
Now you mentioned there the Japan card. You mentioned a bunch of guys. You said you'd like a striker. Have you got a striker in mind?
Oh man, there's 65 guys that I like to fight. The whole division, man, one after another. I can't think of any names, but it'll have to be, I'd say, a Japanese guy or a Japanese-related guy if I'm trying to get on that card. But I think I match up pretty well with Japanese fighters.
Well,
I fought 2 of them, so...
Well, congratulations on you winning your UFC debut, and thank you very much, Dan, for giving me your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Before we let you go, I'd like to give you a chance to do some shout-outs. If you'd like to... I know there's a lot of people helping to get ready. If you'd like to thank anybody, and any sponsors you'd like to shout out as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Stroke Force Gym New Zealand and my trainers, Copious Clothing, and onit.com.
Well, I can't wait to see you step back in, and I hope you get on that Japan card.
Cheers. Thanks heaps.